Welcome to winter in the kitchen here. My mother-in-law got me this mug. I am itching to get some gardening done. I'm very much looking forward to spring. I cannot wait. But first I need to empty out my freezers. My leftover vegetable scraps are finally getting their moment to shine. Whenever I cut up veggies like onions, celery, carrots, carrot peels, herbs, I will put those ends and scraps into a freezer bag and then back into the freezer. Once I have about 2 gallons of scraps, I'll make some broth to can for storage. My favorite thing about this broth is it's pretty much free and comprised of things that I either would have composted or tossed in the trash. When making broth, I do try to wait until I have a decent amount of scraps, just because I do prefer to can it. Since vegetable broth is a low-acid food, you do need to use a pressure canner, and if I'm going to get that bad boy out, I'm going to make sure that it's worth my time. So I wanted to make sure that I had plenty of broth and I wasn't just, canning a jar or two. I wanted to make it worth my time. But my jars typically sit in the basement when they're not in use, and so I'm just washing them just to make sure that they're clean. Since I am pressure canning, I don't have to sterilize them. The nice thing is this is a pretty hands-off process. I just stir the broth every once in a while. I haven't canned broth in a while, so I grabbed my ball canning book. I was just kind of seeing how much headspace I needed, which was 1 inch, and then how long I needed to process it. So it's a pretty simple process. You just kind of need the time to do it. Whenever you're canning, you always want your jar temperature to match the temperature of the food that you're putting in it. Otherwise, they're going to shatter and it's just not a good time. So I'm just heating my jars, and while I'm doing that, I'm just getting some of my lids washed with just some warm soapy water, and then I am pretty much ready to put the food in the jars. Since I am doing broth, I did decide to add a little bit of salt. You do need to use like a canning salt or just something without iodine. And I don't always add salt. It really just kind of depends. And I wish I would have written that I salted it on there, but I can usually tell when I cook with it. So I'm just filling my jars and getting them ready to process. Well, I wasn't able to get my stuff out of my canner before I left. So I'm hoping they're still gonna seal. I'm a little nervous, I'm not gonna lie. Last summer, my dad and I grew a ton of onions, and he ended up giving me his extra onions just because he doesn't eat them as often as we do. And even though we have been eating through them all winter long, I still had a ton left. So what I decided to do was start preserving them. They were starting to sprout and I really don't want any food to go to waste. So I decided to freeze dry them. And the great thing about the freeze dryer is all I had to do is chop them up and put them in the freeze dryer. The one downside is it does take about 2 days to process a freeze dryer load, if you will. And I actually forgot to put parchment paper down on one of the freeze dryer trays on this first one. You'll kind of see it. And then later in the video, I'm going to show you the difference. The only reason I put parchment paper down is just so the onions don't stick to the tray. Oh, shoot. I really didn't think it would be a big deal. I didn't want to fuss with it, so I just put it in like that. But it actually had a really significant color difference. So that was really surprising. So I thought I'd share that in case you have a freeze dryer. I don't have a ton of experience yet, but I just wanted to share. Had a very busy preservation day yesterday. All right, don't judge my hat hair. I wear a hat all day at work, and I went to work with my hair wet, so this is what we're working with. Got a couple eggs today. These are pretty gross ones. Just 2 though. I think all of my broths sealed, which is really nice because that does not always happen. They would all seal on something that I can reprocess. When you have like green beans or something, you can't reprocess them. You have to eat them right away. Put them on the shelf. One thing that I really like to do if I have the time is basically freezing pre-cut vegetables. I will typically do this with onions, peppers, celery, and the way I do that is I will take a cookie sheet and I will put parchment paper down and then lay the vegetable in a single layer, pop them in the freezer, typically overnight or just honestly whenever I can get to them, and then I'll place them in the amount that I would typically use in a recipe. For example, your average medium-sized onion is about a cup of chopped onions. I measured a cup, popped them in these sandwich bags, and then I will take the sandwich bags and I will put them into a freezer bag. And I just find that this is a way that I can save money just because freezer bags are a little bit more expensive. As you can see, I have these all ready. It's super nice when I'm cooking. I can just grab a bag out and call it a day. So it is a little bit time consuming, but this is like my fast food. Definite game changer. Do we have to tell it to defrost?
No, I chose no defrost. Yeah, it'll just defrost overnight.
Weird.
Oh yeah, there's like no weight or anything to it.
That's some funny color. That one does. Isn't that weird? Mm-hmm. Might just have more green in it. Because like I don't want to, I mean, there's green stuff in there. I don't want to waste it, you know.
It'll be fine.
This day, I was absolutely exhausted. Work had been kicking my butt. I had spent all my off time preserving, so Charlie helped me package these up. This is probably like 8 or 9 at night, which may not seem late to some of you, but that is past your girl's bedtime. So I am really grateful that Charlie helped me package these because sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do even though you don't want to do it. And he's kind of the professional with the Sealy guy, you know, whatever. You guys know what I mean. So he's just kind of showing you guys the thingy-majiggy all sealed. Okay, let's move on. I don't even know what I look like. What is even happening? Okay, I can't really tell how terrible I look, but good morning. It is 6:30 in the morning. I have a lot I need to get done today. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get it done, and I'm on call tomorrow, so my weekend is cut in half. I brought the roaster up yesterday, but I ended up just preserved so much on Friday that I was like, I could not do a whole lot yesterday. We're gonna try to get some apples done today. These apples were definitely not stored in the way that they should have been. I was so sick of preserving by the end of the season that I just kind of stopped preserving. I have quite a few apples they're soft, but they're not bad. So I'm just gonna use them for applesauce, like no big deal. These will make perfect applesauce and apple butter. I should have put them in plastic, like apple bags, and they'd probably still be crisp. So I definitely failed on that, but I'm not gonna let them go to waste. My plan is basically just to cut these up and then get them in the roaster and have those cooking all day, and then hopefully can them tonight. So the first thing that I did with these apples is I washed them. I haven't washed them. They were just kind of sitting in the fridge. That's kind of something that you want to keep in mind when you are storing something for long term, is you do not want to wash them. I'm not sure why. That's just the rule, and that's just what we got to do, okay? I'm sure someone has a good explanation for it. But anyway, we ate a lot of these apples fresh. We got a super good deal on these apples from like the cutest farmer ever last summer, and he was selling them out of his pickup truck for like dirt cheap. I want to say we paid $5 or $10 per paper grocery bag of these apples. They were actually such a good deal that we walked our bags to the car and then we went back and bought 2 more bags. I think we ended up buying like 70 pounds of apples. So like I said, we did eat a lot of them fresh, but at some point they kind of got soft and they just weren't good for fresh eating anymore. Like I said, that's my bad. Next year we're going to be better. But I pretty much just tossed these into the roaster. One thing I wish I would have done is I wish I would have done this the night before, but I've never done it before in the roaster, so I was really nervous that they would burn. And last fall, the reason I stopped preserving these apples is because I actually burnt a batch, and it broke my heart. Since I am a glutton for punishment, I decided to start getting some tomatoes going. I had this pizza sauce package from my dad, and as you can see, I had a ton of tomatoes that I popped into the freezer at the end of the summer. Again, I was just sick of preserving, I'm not gonna lie. So this was actually really difficult to get these thawed out. I pretty much just weighed out what I needed to make sure that I had enough. That's the one thing I really love about these Mrs. Wages seasoning packets, is that it tells you how much, like how many pounds you need. They're small batches, which is super nice. And it's super beginner friendly. I started with Mrs. Wages, and there are still some things that I will use Mrs. Wages seasoning packets for, as you can see in this. But I had to wait pretty much all day for them to thaw out, and I'm wearing gloves because they were still a little frozen, and my sensitive little fingers were cold. So I wore those kind of just to protect my fingers. I double gloved just to kind of create a little bit more warmth. But as you can see, I'm just kind of slicing them. And then the nice thing about freezing the tomatoes is the skins peel off super easily. And then I'll save those skins. You can dehydrate them and then make them into powder. You can save them and put them in broth, which I ended up doing later in this video. So you guys, I don't like wasting stuff, so I will save as much as I can to use for something else. It's just, that's what I do. I love it. Ugh. I'm in over my head, I know I am.
What's new?
Big facts.
Yeah. Oh, Mom's making applesauce for Tootsie Pootsie Nootsy.
These apples have been on 200 in the whatever roaster thing for
yeah, count.
like 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah.
They're not even close to being soft yet.
I'm putting on snow pants.
Okay.
Silly.
Silly Billy.
So I figured I would start
Hi.
trying to do a pizza sauce recipe. Still have a ton of tomatoes that are not thawed.
How many?
A ton. I can barely feel my fingers from dealing with the other frozen
I
ones.
can't feel my fingers when I'm peeling tomatoes.
Does it look funny that I have the hat?
It's funny that I have the glasses.
So, I'm not gonna lie, I'm getting a little burnt out on preserving, which means I'm also getting a little burnt out on filming it, so I totally forgot to film canning the pizza sauce. Charlie and I are going to try to work on more of our onions. This is the rest of our onions, so we've got quite a few yet.
Yeah.
And this isn't even, we won't be able to preserve all these today. But we're gonna try, we're gonna do our best. I didn't use parchment paper on one of these, and then on this one I did. So I don't know if you guys can tell, but there's a total color difference. I don't know why. So we're gonna make sure to do that. Since we cut up a lot of onions, there's a lot of like onion tops and just A lot of them were sprouting. I'm making onion broth. It's the same way that I made the regular broth. I've never made it before. I heard it's delicious. I've got 3 of these bad boys. Six minutes into my call shift, I got called in. And so I asked Charlie if he would run the apples through the food mill, and he was like, no big deal. So the apples took over 15 hours to cook down, and since it's really cold here, we put the roaster in the breezeway to keep them cold. This was my first time using the roaster to make applesauce, so it was definitely trial and error, and I was really worried about them burning. Next time, I will toss them in the roaster overnight just to kind of speed it up. I really don't think that there would be any issue in burning just because it is such a low temperature, but I haven't done it yet, so I can't really vouch for that. I was on call for 24 hours, so Charlie put the pureed apples in the fridge for me to deal with the next day.
Where is the line between dreaming and feeling blue? It's 4 o'clock in the evening. I haven't left my room, but the truth is, if I'm honest, I feel stuck here in the middle. Am I one of those crazy people? Should I stay here or should I let go?
This preservation project has taken me way longer than I thought it would. I'm super happy with how much I've gotten done. Got, I think, 2, 4, 6. I've gotten at least, I think, 12 or 13 new broth quarts to put downstairs, which is awesome. It's all from scraps, except the, the small little amount of tomatoes and herbs I put in, but it's just really nice. It does take time, but it's just, if you've ever canned, you know the feeling of pulling one of these off the shelf in the dead of winter. I picked these tomatoes for this pizza sauce months ago. You're recording.